There are moments in life that split everything into before and after. For CEO Jonathan Reed, that moment arrived on a stormy Tuesday morning in a glittering skyscraper that carried his name. The storm outside mirrored the intensity in the boardroom, where billion-dollar contracts were being pulled apart. Yet just outside those glass doors of the pristine tower, another story was quietly breaking apart. Emily Carter, a quiet janitor who had spent 3 years working unnoticed in the building, carried a secret beneath her uniform. Bruises that revealed a truth no one had cared to ask about. That was until Jonathan happened to glance up and truly see her for the first time. What followed would ripple across the company, changing not only policies but also hearts. If you believe in compassion, second chances, and standing up for what's right, please like this video, subscribe to TaleHook, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps us continue bringing meaningful stories to life. Emily Carter was 26 years old, moving like someone who longed to stay invisible. She was always early, always precise, and rarely spoken to. Many assumed she was simply shy, perhaps even distant. But the reality was far more painful. Behind her silence was fear. Her nights were filled with shouting, slammed doors, and fists pounding against her ribs. Her boyfriend Lucas, once charismatic, had turned into something cruel and unpredictable. Emily didn't know how to walk away. She had no family, barely any friends, and her job as a night cleaner at Reed Enterprises was her only thread of stability. Her body carried the silent evidence: a fresh bruise on her cheekbone, fingerprints buried beneath her sleeves, and eyes that avoided reflections. Jonathan Reed, however, was the complete opposite of unseen. At 38, he was one of the city's youngest self-made CEOs, admired for his brilliant instincts and relentless work ethic. But his achievements came at a price. Divorced, estranged from his teenage daughter, and surrounded by people who only told him what he wanted to hear, Jonathan had built his empire alone. He never noticed the cleaners. He never noticed the assistants. He never noticed anyone below the top floor. Until that morning. It started with a spilled cup of coffee in the executive lounge. Jonathan returned early from a client meeting and entered just as Emily was wiping up the mess left by a careless executive. She flinched at his presence, her hand rising instinctively to shield her face. For a brief second, their eyes connected. Not a passing glance, but one that lingered, speaking volumes. Her eyes were red, not from lack of sleep alone, but from something much deeper. He noticed the faint purple bruise. Bruises didn't lie. Instantly, a memory struck him, his own daughter's tears after her mother's remarriage, and how he had brushed them off as a phase. Emily's silent suffering hit him with force. He stepped forward. She instinctively stepped back. He raised his hands gently, careful not to alarm her. The question, "Who hurt you?" pressed at his lips, but it felt too sudden, too harsh. So instead, he did something unexpected. He sat down. Emily froze. In 3 years, no one had spoken to her as if she mattered. But Jonathan asked if she wanted water, if she needed to sit, if she felt safe. She shook her head every time, though her trembling hands betrayed her. When he softly repeated, "You don't have to hide here," something inside her cracked. A single tear escaped, and then she turned and fled. That night, Jonathan couldn't sleep. The image of her brokenness haunted him. The next morning, he pulled her personnel file, her full name, her emergency contact, her salary, which barely covered her rent. He called HR with questions he had never considered before. Did they provide domestic abuse assistance, mental health support, systems to check on vulnerable employees? No one had answers, so Jonathan resolved to be the answer himself. Emily didn't appear for work for 2 days. On the 3rd day, she returned, paler, quieter. But something had shifted. The receptionist greeted her warmly. A care package was waiting in her locker, and later that night, When she entered the janitor's closet, Jonathan was there waiting. This time, he didn't pry. Instead, he handed her a card, with contact numbers for a women's shelter, a legal advocate, and a therapist. "If you ever want to talk to someone besides me," he said softly, "they're here for you." Emily's hands shook as she held the card. "Why?" she whispered. Jonathan's voice was heavy as he replied, "Because once my daughter was told to keep quiet, and I'll regret forever that I didn't listen sooner." That night, Emily made a choice, not to solve everything instantly, but to take the first step. She called the shelter. She spoke with a counselor. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel alone. Quietly, Jonathan covered the cost of her sessions. He approved her transfer to a daytime role and began implementing reforms across his company, establishing policies to protect workers, creating anonymous reporting systems, and requiring empathy training for managers. Soon, whispers circulated. The CEO was changing. He no longer ignored the janitors. He paused to speak with receptionists, interns, and baristas. And when a junior staffer suffered harassment from her supervisor, Jonathan himself escorted the man out of the building. The media dismissed it as a publicity stunt, but those closest to him saw the truth. In his eyes, in his silence, in the way he truly listened. Emily began to heal. She secured a restraining order. She moved into a shared apartment with other survivors, and one afternoon, after earning her GED through company-sponsored programs, she found a letter in her locker. It was from Jonathan. It read simply, "You are stronger than you think. When you're ready, a desk job is waiting for you. No pressure, just belief." 3 months later, Emily walked into HR with a smile and hope in her stride. She wore a lavender blouse, no longer covering her arms. Her eyes were bright. Her posture was strong. From the balcony above, Jonathan watched her with a feeling he hadn't known in years. Not pride, not relief, but grace. If this story moved you, if Emily's courage or Jonathan's transformation touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who might need encouragement, and subscribe to TaleHook. Your support keeps these stories alive. Remember, just one act of kindness can change a life. Before you leave, we have a special request. Comment below with one word that captures what this story meant to you. Was it hope, strength, or redemption? We'd love to hear from you.